Hello everyone, I'm Iron Phoenix and welcome to Gold Rush, a game that I have no idea about. Well, I know how to play it. This is not I've no idea. Coming into this game a long time ago, and I think I have featured this on the channel before, but probably not with all these updates. Yeah, I don't really know why this game exists, because you kind of look at it and it's a tie-in to an American TV show. I don't really follow that side of things. I think it's like meant to be similar to like Ice Road Truckers, that sort of style of partially a documentary type thing. I don't know. I don't know. I don't watch it. It's a TV show. That's pretty much as far as I know. I think it's on Discovery, weirdly, because this has got like Discovery branding on it and everything. So yeah, so that's the thing. So you think on the face of things, and looking at the screenshots. That this is. Give me just 1 second. Something is crackling, and I need to sort it out. Okay, right guys, sorry about that. This is what happens when you make a cake. You get the baking paper off, you tear it off the bottom, and then it sits there and it crackles. Right, okay, we are back. So where was I? Yeah, so you kind of come into this, the graphics are not impressive at all. And it's one of those games, it didn't get particularly good reviews when it was released, because it wasn't released in a very good state. Had an awful lot of just bugs. And for the most part, those bugs have been fixed, but they're still there. There's still quite a lot of physics issues. And you do have to be quite careful when you're like towing trailers, for example. The trailers can sort of run away from you a lot. Not even if they're not even heavy trailers. They're just sort of they're in some cases mostly empty trailers, and yet they can still words. They can still sort of run away from you. So it's something to consider. The physics is a little bit jank in places, and yet somehow it's it's a reasonably, I guess, dull game. There's not really much going on. It's reasonably sort of simple mechanics. Basically, you get dirt. You put it into some kind of a wash plant of some description. I'm using the mobile one at the moment. I'm saving up for the entire big jig setup over there. And you get gold. And then that gold is then sent to, you take it to a blacksmith. Blacksmith turns it into gold bars, and then you sell those gold bars to the bank. And that gets you money. So not too complicated on the face of things. As I said, this is not a complicated game. But if it was just that, and there was no other sort of gameplay to it, I don't know, it's just one of those very odd games. I can't help but actually enjoy it, despite all of its problems. It's kind of like Fallout 76, only this game is a lot more reliable than Fallout 76, despite being made from a relatively unknown, at that point anyway, studio. And they did a really good job of it. And that's odd, because these sorts of games shouldn't exist. It's like film tie-ins. You can probably count on the fingers of one hand the film tie-in games which are actually any good. Yeah, you're going to really struggle. Incredible Hulk comes to mind. Spider-Man, the latest Spider-Man game, I think got some quite good reviews. And I'm already starting to draw a blank. Oh, the 50 Cent game, which was just, why does this even exist? But I think that got, I think it was Blood Money. I think that got some reasonable reviews as well. But things like Iron Man, somehow, they managed to make Iron Man boring. Just boring to play. You know, how can you do that? You're in a mechanized suit. And yet somehow the developers have done something that nobody has ever done, made Iron Man boring. It's nuts. So, and that's basically because movie tie-in games are... Oh, Alien Isolation, that's the other one that kind of you don't immediately think of. Because it's not... It's sort of linked in with the franchise rather than in with a specific movie. But, yeah, generally, you know, movie tie-in games are just absolute trash. And yet, somehow, sometimes they work. And this is one of those ones, the sort of the TV tie-in type things, which has worked. As I said, it's not particularly visually impressive. But there are some rather interesting mechanics here, which we'll talk about, I think. So... I'm basically currently just running through what you see. So you get dirt, you put it in a wash plant, and in some way you pan for gold. And at the start you're literally panning for gold and pulling gold out of a pan. Until eventually you get a sort of a setup similar to this with an excavator and a mobile wash plant and then these couple of things. This separates the gold from the magnetite. We're going to need the magnetite for upgrades to the blacksmith. Yeah, it's already getting a little bit more complicated than you might expect. And of course the magnetite needs to go into the magnetite trailer, so we'll just take that over there. You can get workers that will give you buffs to various things or make little abilities, like if you're on the excavator and there's buckets nearby and the excavator bucket gets full, there is a worker that will switch those buckets out for you as long as there's buckets nearby, which I think is rather nice. But for the most part, they're either automation based or they're like little buffs, like additional speed or less breakdown, that sort of thing. So we've kind of got this little setup here. Anything that you would expect uses fuel. Anything with an engine uses fuel of some description. Yeah, and all these pipes as well. So all these pipes are individual pipes that I've laid. You know, so there's a water line. Hold on, let me just. So we've got an electricity line. We've got electricity lines that go. There's one up to the wash plant and then one up down here. And because I'm only using a little generator at the moment, I need to switch these cables around each time, so that because we've got a rudimentary power system that basically says this thing makes 450 megawatts per hour, and that thing needs 200, I think. So I can't run that and this setup all at the same time because I'm just going to run out of power. So I've just got that to sort of plug setup, and then we've got cables physically running to all the things. And then, you know, I've got this water pipe that goes all the way on here, and most games would just kind of factor out this sort of thing. However, Gold Rush for some reason doesn't. And so yeah, we've got a cable that's running from the lake into a pump, and then that's being pumped down there. You know, how does this sort of thing exist? Because it shouldn't. You know, this is a movie. This is a tie-in game. These are usually sort of print money kind of games. You know, for a very specific crowd. Ooh, good. I should know. When I get into this, I need to turn on the engine and take the handbrake off, and then when I want to hook up to this, I have to line it up. It's just. It's a tie-in game. This should be a print money game. Why is this actually compelling? So we're now going to go down to... I didn't turn that off. Let me just... I can't exit while it's moving, but I can just run off with the handbrake off. It's fine. I just need to turn this off so it's not wasting fuel. So let's go into town. I need to sell my magnetite and get the gold, my next batch of gold on. I should note, I've got the gold nuggets turned on as well, which is a really nice addition. Without the gold nuggets, it can be quite slow gameplay. So I actually started a new game. I'm actually already further, I think, along, or not quite, but I'm pretty far ahead anyway than my game that's just kind of been going on for ages. Oh, no, we need to get into the magnetite thing. I need to drop off my magnetite first. So magnetite can be sold for money if you're hard up, but as you can see, I've got 90,000, and basically all I'm spending it on at the moment is fuel, because I'm waiting for some decent sales. There we go. No, back. There we go. Just need to make sure it's over this thing until that. A tiny amount of magnetite, that's fine. And then that one. Handbrake off, engine on, and go. Thankfully, this is an automatic, so you can just drive it like any other car in any other video game, or me in real life. Yes, I'm one of these people. I'm one of those few Brits that has discovered the majesty of the automatic gearbox, which I'm glad about, actually. I can't drive manuals. No, literally, I am not allowed to drive manual gearboxes. It's on my license and everything. I only have an automatic license, but I live in the UK, and for the most part, you only need an automatic license because most of the time you're sitting in traffic. So for things like stop-start traffic, automatics are great. But, I mean, these days I just don't really see the point of needing, you don't need a gearbox. It's probably slightly more fuel efficient, but automatic gearboxes are getting quite good these days. Certainly the older type, like my type, the gearbox won't be quite as fuel efficient as a manual of something of the similar age. Okay, so yeah, so you can sell your magnetite, and so I'll get 5,000 for 20,000 of that, but I'm not going to do that. I can also sell my gold ore here, but you don't get a very good price for it. But I would get, say, 5,000 for everything that I've got here, which is not much. However, what I can also do is I can use my magnetite to upgrade things, which I'm actually not that far off. 15 more thousand, and I'll be able to reduce smelting time or reduce the cost of smelting. But and the more useful upgrades, get 30,000 more magnetite, I'll get the amount that I get back. It sort of just increases how much you get back. Certainly reducing the cost would be very useful, because it's going to cost me $1,150 to smelt my gold, but we'll probably get something like from 10 to 15 for that gold. But while that's doing that, we can just sort of run down to the shop, and I can show you shoppy things. So yeah, the map's reasonably large, I should note. It's sort of that sort of large. There's a couple of other mining areas which you can use. Currently, I'm just working out this one. So there's three other plots that you can rent or buy. I have rented the first plot, which you can rent for nothing, but it's something like a 10% gold share every day for rent. But you can just buy it outright. Okay, so these are all the machines that you can buy in Gold Rush. All these sort of parts are all linked together to form gold machines of some description. Things like Miner's Grill, which goes on top of the Miner's Moss, which in turn goes on top of, well, basically big things like that, but bigger. So yeah, and we've all got our spare parts through here for all the bits that go wrong on, because these things aren't just things. They've got bits on them that can be can break, and you need to replace them when they break. My gold bar's ready. Let's run down and get the gold bar. Yeah. Yeah, so let's run down and get the gold bar, see how much the bank will give it to us, give for it. Oh god, I can't do words today. God, it's been a long day. I actually did a Tesco shop today. That was fun. So, in the real world right now, the UK is in a panic buying frenzy. So I went to Tesco's and I bought a few things that I needed. You know, just stuff that I needed to live through the next week. Food, basically. But I thought, well, I kind of need to get another thing of pasta. So I went down to the pasta aisle. There's no pasta at all. The only thing were little bundles of linguine, which not particularly useful. So I was okay, then fine. Let me just yeah. So we'll get 12,000 for that bar, which I'm going to do. It does sort of go up and down. I probably sold it at a bit of a low point, but it will sort of bounce back up again. And yeah, hopefully sell it at a bit of a higher point next time. But still, that puts me over into 101,000. So before I get to my pasta story, which is incredibly thrilling, as you might imagine, full of lots of fisticuffs, and at one point I wrestled a crocodile. So prices in this game fluctuate. So as you saw with the gold bar, the price of gold goes up and down, but so do the prices of machines and you know, all the parts and all that. As we get closer to summer, the price increases. As we get further away from summer, the price decreases. So, for example, and these are all machines that you can buy, the shaker, which is my thing that I'm... so a few days ago, that was 90,000. It's gone up to 93,000. Now, there are other ways of reducing the cost of things. You can get these like notes that are scattered around the level, and each one gives you 1% reduction in cost of all items. But one of the best ways to do is just to wait. So I can afford to buy this now, but I don't want to. Mainly because I know that the price is going to drop by about 13,000 if I just wait till winter sets in. So for the most part, I am currently just... Actually, do I still have my calculator? I do still have my calculator. So I did an estimate of how much my big upgrade is going to cost. And my big upgrade is, if I just go into the journal, this here. Borrowing the cables, obviously, because I've already got them. It's not just this. So it's the shaker, the trommel, the duplex jig, which you need to so it's the shaker, which is this one, the trommel, which is that one, the sluice boxes, which are 2 of those, and I've already got one of these because I bought it on a sale, and one of those. Then so that forms the basis of the actual machine. Then 2 of these, I haven't actually factored in all the bits that I need on top of this, but for the most part, this is just the machines. So 2 of those, which normally they're 20,000, not 41,000. All this is sort of more upgrades. I like how this is now stored off over here, because these are specifically upgrades for stuff that's out here. Pretty much. Obviously, the machines are a little bit different, but anyway. And I think it was also... Oh, yeah. This one, which is currently 46,000. and the dump truck, which is currently 112,000. And yeah, there's a lot of machines to buy. The conveyor belt hopper, which is currently 36, and the conveyor belt, which is currently 79,000. If I buy all of that machinery, at the time when I did my calculator thing, it will have gone up since then. It will cost me $363,110, which is a lot of money. But that was done, as I said, a few days ago, when the prices weren't that. Even then, they weren't that as expensive as they are now. But they're also not as cheap as it could be. Because I'll be getting the shaker for 80,000 roughly. The other thing I am waiting on is sales of these items, because if they go onto a sale and they end up being cheaper than what they would normally be in winter, then I may as well buy them. However, there's probably not much point unless they are cheaper. Oh, and that big thing there, that's a mobile conveyor belt, which you can apparently chain them together to allow for better transference of materials, which sounds wonderful. See what I mean about this game not really... It's not that it doesn't have an identity, though it sort of is. It's, as I said, it's a game that I don't really know how it exists, because it should just be a cheap cashing game. The visual qualities are... The visual quality is meh. It's what I would consider to be good enough. The physics are jank. Just generally, how well it performs is not great. And yet they've put a whole bunch of simulation into the game which shouldn't exist. As I said, I've never been really sure about it. This is the one game which I think I would begrudgingly say that it was a good game. Now, anybody who watches my channel, how I feel about Fallout 76. I enjoy it personally, but I wouldn't recommend it. This would get begrudging recommend because although it's very janky and you got that large pause when it does its save, and you can just sort of flip into a pit by accident, or or lose half your bonnet, or just run into any one of a number of bugs. And I've gone a bit too far. I need to drive back that way. It's still a fun and very compelling game, because although it's got an awful lot of other issues, it makes up for it by being, well, compelling, interesting. I don't know, there's something about it that basically says that it isn't just a cash-in game, that maybe it is half of it, but actually they wanted to make a good representation of what the TV series is like. I don't know, never watched it, but I enjoy it anyway, and I don't really know why. Something like Subnautica, which is just a good game. I don't think anybody could say that. Maybe Subnautica is not right for everyone, sure, but somebody who enjoys that sort of thing, that enjoys that sort of survival game, they would enjoy Subnautica. I think that's fairly safe to say. But I don't. I mean, maybe this is the sort of game for the kinds of people who would play something like Elite Dangerous, what was that, Rogue System, that sort of thing. Very strangely sort of strange simulations, despite I've got to just run and turn everything back on again because I forgot to do that. These sort of strange simulations that have some arcadey elements to them in one way or another, but I guess the mix of arcade and simulation, I don't know. I don't really know how to describe this one. I mean, the fact that, for example, it's like meant to be a you can sleep. You don't have to. Unlike humans. I mean, my character probably hasn't slept now for, I don't know, a month. I think, actually, no, he grabbed some sleep not that long ago because it got really dark outside and I couldn't see where I was going. And I was moving machines around and it's like, well, if I'm not careful, I'm just going to fall into a pit. So, you know what? I'm gonna not move machines around in the pitch black, and instead go sleep. You get some sleep and then come back to it. But most of my life is just sort of doing this and hoping to get some nuggets, which the nuggets are really quite good. It's not a full bucket. So down we go. A little bit of dirt simulation goes in there, and you dig it out, and you get confused with the controls because there's an awful lot of controls when dealing with arms. Who would have thought? Dealing with arms, so many controls involved. Ugh. So yeah. Anyway, my little wrestling story. Disclaimer: contains no wrestling. No. So yeah, I went to Tesco's for the shop, as I said. Needed a few things, and yeah, no, the panic buying is it's nuts, right? Properly nuts. While I was there. So yeah, pasta. There's nothing left. No pasta left. Bleach. Tesco's own high strength bleach. Limited to 5 bottles per customer. As you can imagine, that shelf is also empty. What were the other things? It was like a load of weird things as well. Milk, obviously, like powdered milk, I think was in short supply. Loads of toilet rolls. But that was I do know that there's been some panic buying of toilet rolls in the area. In another Tesco, they are empty. They still had soaps. However, there was a group of people there reading the back of the soap. Who does that? Look, it's soap. It's gonna clean your hands. And you combine that with water, and it cleans anything that's on your hands off of them. That's what soap does. If you want something a little bit more specialised, go and buy some Swarfiga. Oh god! Don't fall into the hole. It's a bit weird. I was so tempted to go over to them and say, look, it's just soap. That's what it does. Reading the back of the packet isn't going to give you any more information than reading the front. Oh, people. I expect they were looking for this is going to kill whatever virus they're obsessed about this time of day. There was the vodka was the really sort of weird one, and it turns out, on speaking with some people, turns out that there is some claim going on at the moment that by combining vodka with like aloe vera oil, you can turn it into like a hand moisturizer. Doesn't work. In order to kill viruses, you need anything over 60% alcohol, which you cannot buy in the UK. Vodka, I don't know it's strong, but it's not that strong. Essentially, you need some extremely strong alcohol in order to do that, or just use soap and hot water, because that will do exactly the same thing. But yeah, as a result, the like the Russian, the good stuff, the strong stuff, which still won't work. Yeah, that's being bought, presumably, so people can take it home, put it on their hands, because what a waste of good vodka, really. But that seems to be the world we live in right now. That there's an awful lot more. I don't want to say media panic, but yeah, it pretty much is. Obviously, coronavirus is something that we have to worry about, etc. But it's just taking, basic precautions, really. Wash your hands. Basically, wash your hands, eat lots of fruit and vegetables to beef up your immune system. And, yeah, pretty much that. I think that's just generally, it's just common sense rules. It's like, travelling on the tube, it's, yeah, I used to be I used to live in London, and it's like, by travelling on the tube, you risk getting all kinds of illnesses anyway, so you take certain precautions, and one of those precautions is when you get to somewhere where you can wash your hands, you wash your hands. You try to avoid touching your face after travelling on the tube until you've managed to wash your hands. It's, yeah, as I said, there's an awful lot of common sense rules when it comes to this. And, like I've said to other people, we're humans. We survive pretty much everything. Well, we're still here, so we survive everything. This is the thing. So 6,000 humans survived the Ice Age. Now, obviously, there's an awful lot more of this these days, but we're also a lot more technologically savvy, I guess. There's an awful lot more technology. We've got access to just so much more than we used to. And this will all sort of blow over, and people will just sort of suddenly wonder why their cupboards are full of toilet roll. It's all a little ridiculous. Though the people that were preparing for no-deal Brexit, which may still come, I think they'll probably be fairly well off, actually, at the moment. The idea that they won't have to go out and buy lots of toilet rolls because they've already got their stash sorted. Not because they've panic bought, but because they've prepared for a situation that is quite frankly impending. The UK is not going to get a deal with the EU, not the way that Boris is behaving. Oh, and I am now out of fuel, so I need to go and get some fuel and not fall down a hole that I may have trouble getting. Oh no, I can get up here. It's fine. Just don't fall in that big pit. Okay, right. So now I need to get some fuel. Right, got fuel in here, but I can't. Need my truck. Yeah. On the plus side, on the brighter news. I've got a Paranoia game on Tuesday, which is going to be fun. So a long time ago, I bought Paranoia from Epic Games Store, which is a fantastic game which you can no longer buy, and nobody is sure why. And I really should see if anybody knows why. But there is sort of a hint from the journalists that were reporting on it that lawyers might be involved, in the basis that nobody seems to be talking about it, which is generally a very good sign that lawyers are involved if they're not allowed to talk about it. Why? We don't know. Ultimately, all of this is guessing and conjecture. However, I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed that sort of premise. So, and I knew it came from a board game. Oh, tabletop RPG type thing. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to pick up the rule set and see if there's anybody at work that wants to play. And there was. So, yep, so I'm going to be DMing Paranoia on Tuesday. It should be interesting. I've never DM'd before. Ever. No, it's a very, very interesting rule set because it gives the DM an awful lot of control over the game and how it's played, to the point where an awful lot of the rules are sort of based on what the GM feels is appropriate for the scene. It's more about telling a story, and so the players they literally have instructions that will get them fine through, playing the game. And the instructions are basically, you can fit them very easily on the side of A5 paper. And it's literally to the point where you make a character, which will take... so Dungeons and Dragons characters can take up to hours to craft a good one. Paranoia character, you can do... Well, I'm hoping that we'll be able to do all 5 in about 10 minutes. Because it is literally... They are picking stats to take. And through various means that builds them a character. And then on any action, you roll for it, and the DM assigns a difficulty rating to the action, and that even goes for combat as well. In fact, sometimes they won't even have weapons, and they'll be improvising in the scene to do damage, or complete a task. They may not necessarily be able to shoot at the lock, but they might be able to, find some way around it. So it's very much more narrative based, and certainly when weapons are involved, there's no such thing as ranges. It's just the GM will assign difficulty rating, maybe add or subtract some dice based on ranges, competence of the player or whatever. And if they roll a 6 on the computer dice, the computer gets involved, and they really do not want the computer to get involved. The computer can get in the way while it thinks that it's helping, which is fabulous. So yeah, very, very sort of easy thing to sort of get to grips with. So I think I'm pretty much prepared for that. I'm just going to be going through the first one in the mission book, so it shouldn't be too taxing. Certainly, I've been looking for a sort of a fun type thing like that to do for a while. And I was kind of toying with maybe something like Deadlands or Call of Cthulhu, something like that. Something a little bit different to... because everybody plays Dungeons and Dragons. Everyone has a Dungeons and Dragons character. And so it was actually quite interesting coming across Paranoia on the basis that it's kind of set up for one-shots. So especially in the summer when it's blazing hot outside and we all just want to hang around at work in the nice air conditioning. Then something like that would be great, because I can just literally just run a one-shot of that, and that's kind of the plan. So anyway, yeah, that will be fun, and I'm sure there's going to be some stories coming out of that later on. But yes, just going to continue digging a hole. I'm very much like Boris Johnson, just constantly digging a hole for himself. Oh, he went to visit the the people that had survived all the flooding in the UK, and someone yelled at him, "Don't you think it's a little too late?" And he said, "No, it's bang on time." Really? What, after the floods receded? You think that is on time? No. He's not very good with his timings, I have to say. He, for the coronavirus thing, he called an emergency meeting in 3 days. That's not really an emergency meeting if you can wait 3 days for it. I don't know. I just don't think he's a very good Prime Minister. I think, end of the day, he's going to be one of those ones that is forgotten, hopefully. I don't think he's going to be a particularly effective Prime Minister. Sort of along the line, or if he's remembered, it's for all the wrong reasons, like Neville Chamberlain. If anybody remembers Neville Chamberlain, it's usually because he attempted to appease the Nazis in World War II by giving them land, and then when that didn't work, it left Britain in a very awkward situation, because although he'd seen the Nazis as a potential threat, he'd decided that the only way to deal with them was through this appeasement program, but he hadn't actually started to prepare for war. What happens if the appeasement doesn't work? He hadn't prepared for it, and as a result, when Britain did end up in war, they had an awful lot of ground to make up for. There are a few other prime ministers that you just kind of most prime ministers are forgettable. You very rarely get one that was remembered for something good. Churchill is pretty much the only one that anybody will immediately say, yes, he did this, and this was good on the whole, or this was bad, because Churchill also had issues of his own that various people don't like. He was an imperialist, and so that caused some problems with what he believed ultimately. But then again, different times, you can't necessarily judge someone for their views when that was generally commonly held beliefs. Of the time, anyway. Lloyd George was the other one that I seem to remember. He was Prime Minister for a while, but I only remember that one because of citation needed. I was not taught about, famous Prime Ministers. Thatcher will always be remembered, but never for anything good. She was a good orator. She was a good speaker. Better than I am. She could get some really good speeches. She had an awful lot of very good, solid speeches. But as a Prime Minister for the people, she was not great, I should say. She initiated an awful lot of sort of taxation for the sort of the working class. Taxation, and there was some the miners' strikes, and where she fired all the miners. It was just lots of. So when the Falklands came along, the Falklands were essentially her blessing, because she could get the nationalists on side, because she was sticking it to those Argentinians who were trying to take our land, and without it, I think she would just have been gone down in the history of another one of those prime ministers who never really did anything good. Though she did accidentally send. Well, it wasn't necessarily her fault that on the way there they realised that 2 of their frigates were carrying nuclear weapons. It's like, oh, that's what these crates are. Should we put them somewhere safe? And so they did actually winch them over to the carriers, which have much more sort of fortified magazines, which was very lucky. On the basis that both the frigates that they were originally stationed on sunk and yeah, it's not really what you want to have to say to to anyone. Oh, and by the way, we've not only have we just lost 2 ships to the Argentinians, they were both carrying nuclear weapons. It's not really something you ever want to have to say. It's yeah. I mean, the Falklands is an entirely new kettle of fish. The war was originally used as a distraction from the Argentinians' economic situation. There was a crash sort of coming, and the best thing that they could think to do was invade the Falklands on the basis that if they've got a war on, then people aren't necessarily going to be focusing too hard on the economic situation in the in Argentina. And as a result, there's an awful lot more sort of nationalist ideals about the Falkland Islands, which I don't necessarily think is warranted. On the basis that 1800s or something, might have been earlier, people who were descendants of Argentina didn't exist at that point, so there would have been people of Spanish descent, founded a small colony on the Falkland Island, or what we now know to be the Falkland Islands. At the same time, a British colony was also founded, and the British colony said to the Spanish colony, "Look, do you want to join us? There's no point in having 2 colonies on this island. Do you want to join us?" And one of them agreed, and the others left. And since then, the islands have been British owned, and sort of under the umbrella of protection that is I can't remember, overseas territories. Essentially, they govern themselves. They're completely free to govern themselves on the basis that they are, far away. We don't really know what matters to them, so they are free to govern themselves. But they fall under the protection of the Crown. So should they be invaded, yes, you end up getting the British Army on you. Not the British Army. You get the commandos on you, and the commandos I always feel to be the ones that England send to into combat when that group has actually really annoyed the UK. At that point, it's not enough to just send in the army. You're sending in the best and the craziest that we have to offer. This is the top 1% of British soldiers. Incredibly well trained, but clever. These are not rank and file. These are independent thinkers. So very sort of strong-minded individuals. At least the first batch were. The first batch were. So this was World War II. Okay, got bar. World War II. Churchill wanted a sort of a small fighting force that was incredibly well trained, and he needed them for a very, very specific operation. And so the commandos were formed, and there were about 200 of them to begin with. That number sort of went up and down as things progressed, but they were, I believe the first to create what we now see as the assault course. They were the first troops to train in live fire exercises. So they would be running through while explosions were going off around them. Let's just see the stock. Oh, that's bottomed it out. I am going to keep my gold bar. I'm going to put it in my hut until that goes up. So I don't particularly want to sell a 4-ounce gold bar for 5,000. That's not great. Not a great price. Yeah, so yeah, I mean, you know, obviously we know what happened in the Falkland Islands. There was an awful lot of other things that went on, like Britain having to say to France, to ask France to stop sending Exocet missiles over to Argentina, because the French were selling to the Argentinians shipped. I think they're ship-to-ship or ground-to-ship missiles that can be they were designed for anti-ship warfare, and so yeah, there had to be a political request from the UK to France to ask them to stop sending them these weapons, on the basis that these excesses were being used against British ships. But yeah, I mean, the end of it was that, you know, the Falkland Islands were taken back. Most of the Argentinian Navy and most of its air force as well were sunk, thanks to the SAS. And was it the SAS, or were they also command? I think the SAS and the commandos were both sort of in joint operations with this, and yeah, the Falklands were then sort of British again. And you know, we British have run referendums. They want to be British. What more can you say? I don't think, from keeping sort of relatively in touch with what's going on up there, the Falklanders have no reason to want to be Argentinian because of how they've been treated in the past, with all these sort of port blockades and trade bans and all these sorts of things that just makes it harder for them to export their goods, not even to Argentina, but to Peru or Bolivia. There's been all kinds of sort of attempts to stop trade with between the Falklands and the rest of South America, which you see all that, you see the Argentinians do all that, and you kind of realise that actually there is going to be a very good reason why the Falklands don't want to be under Argentinian rule, because why would they? And I think it's sort of the same with Gibraltar and all those little Maltas technically. I can't remember what they all are, but they've got loads of these little overseas territories which govern themselves. They're independent pretty much. They're just under the sort of this umbrella of protection that Britain affords them, and yeah, ultimately we'll just kind of have to see what happens with an awful lot of this, especially Gibraltar and Spain, because Spain want Gibraltar back. It's been English for God knows how long. There's been an awful lot of bad blood between Spain and Gibraltar. I can't imagine Gibraltar would, the people would actually want to be Spanish because of how they've been treated by the Spanish in the past. And by the past, I literally mean in the past few years. This isn't this is a constant problem, and yeah, if we depart from the EU, which we have left the EU. If we want to rejoin, Spain might want to veto that on the basis that they want Gibraltar, and they believe that Gibraltar is theirs, which, you know, it's one of those cases of it is technically theirs, but it's been British now for so long that the people there consider themselves to be British. I mean, you could kind of say something similar of like Crimea. So the people there consider themselves to be Russian. That's a little bit of a different situation there, because I don't know. It might not be, actually. I guess the different situation is that, you know, that's Russia. That's just Russia being imperialist, whereas but it's not. That's the thing. It isn't. If the people there wants to be Russian, then maybe that's how you play it. Who knows, really. Anyway, I think you get the point of this game, and it's given me a little chance to just ramble on about life, the universe, and everything. I'm not going to say that tomorrow is going to be, because I've said that now for 2 weeks and it's not happened, simply just because I get home from work and I'm just shattered. It's a busy time. We will just play it by ear. It probably won't be Wednesday. I don't tend to stream on Wednesday, so because Miniature Nerd streams and he occasionally does some good stuff. And every so often I try to get him to say the word frothy, which he says is frothy. It's funny. So we'll just play it by ear and see what happens. If you are interested in buying Gold Rush, I would say it is available on Steam. It is an awful lot of this, basically, an awful lot of what you're kind of seeing on the screen right now. So if you're not a big fan of things like Euro Truck Simulator, which are, technically what I would consider to be boring games, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. I enjoy this sort of reasonably sort of mind-numbing entertainment every so often. It sort of stops me from thinking too much about other things. So it is currently on Steam. I think it's actually discounted on Steam at the moment because they've got a new season. They've got leaderboards. It's not multiplayer, but they've got leaderboards for gold. So you can get on leaderboards for digging up lots of gold. It's a very odd game. So if you're interested in it, it is available on Steam. I do believe it is discounted at the moment, and it has one DLC, which I do have installed, which is the Frankenstein DLC. Basically, that huge conveyor belt thing is DLC, paid DLC. But anyway, I think you get the point. So,